Welcome to ZZ Talk with Zeus.
And Zino.
This is the podcast of two normal guys who can talk about everything and anything, and we do talk about everything and anything, including pop culture, sports, and a heavy dose of politics. And Zino, today is episode
5. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Maybe milestone.
So anyway. All right, perfect. So, Zeno, real quick, today what we're going to talk about is we're going to, so of course we have our nice little, our little shtick. So, top 5 favorite shows.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then we're going to go into an Emmy recap because Zeno watched the Emmys, and we're going to talk about, we have some opinions, I'm sure, of the shows that won and some of the shows that didn't win. Next, we're going to talk about sports. A horrible day in sports for any Atlanta Falcons fan, and we're going to do a quick recap of our predictions, and then we're going to do predictions for the upcoming week. And then also I'm going to discuss, I went to a Disney trip. I want to talk about how that Disney trip actually opened my eyes to how the COVID response in America could have and should have been better, and why I know we could have done it. Secondly, Zeno had an interview with his friend Graham. What's his last name again?
Graham Denton.
Who's a Native American. He spoke on Native American issues, and we're going to have a quick recap of that. And if you guys haven't had a chance to look at that interview, please do, because it was actually a really good interview. Zeno, you did a great job. And then, unfortunately, RBG. I'm horrible with names, so I'm going to let Zeno say the full name.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Thank you. Passed away. So RIP to RBG. We're going to discuss the impact of her death and how it's shown how there's certain political individuals that are just horrible human beings. Anyways, but of course, before that, we're going to go into corrections.
Okay. Well done.
Thank you.
You have corrections? I know I don't. We've been pretty perfect.
No, I don't. Well, I will say one thing, that we were perfect. So, of course, the correction that I'm going to have is not really a correction, but it's just real quickly I wanted to point out in regards to Graham Greene, the individual, the Native American actor that Graham talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to point out one quick correction to his thing is he was also great in Goliath and Longmire. So if you guys get a chance to read any of his work, it's pretty cool. But other than that, no corrections because we're perfect. So that's
okay.
Good.
Well, okay. Well, I do remember something we talked about in pre-production, and that is that.
Oh, yes. Real quickly.
Okay, you go for it.
I mentioned that someone told me that when a Republican president goes into office that you should switch over to bonds. I was not telling anybody to switch over to bonds. I am absolutely giving no financial advice whatsoever. And if you switch to bonds and it screws you up, it's not on me, it's on you, because I am not telling anybody whatsoever to switch to bonds. So quick correction to make sure that we don't get sued.
In short, ZZ Talk is not a financial advisory channel.
Yeah.
We just talk. We talk about things people have told us. Yes. Yeah. Feel free to do that. Correct. And that is corrections. All right. With that out of the way, let's jump into the Emmys recap, right?
Favorite shows. Here we go. So we're going to talk about our top 5 favorite shows since we just talked about the Emmys, or we're going to talk about the Emmys. Whatever. We'll figure it out. We're going to talk about our top 5 favorite shows. This does not include any show that maybe we didn't like or maybe sucked at the end or sucked at the – well, I guess it's really rare for a show to suck at the beginning and then you like it at the end.
No. So it's basically the show as a whole. If there's some seasons that suck, it might push it out of the top 5. Or if there's some seasons that are really good, it might end up bringing it into the top 5. So
there you go. So that actually explains my number 5. My number 5 is Scrubs. So my wife is a nurse. She's told me that, funny enough, Scrubs is like the more realistic show when it comes to like medical stuff versus like Grey's Anatomy and what's the autistic doctor?
It's called The Good Doctor.
The Good Doctor, shows like that. There's not as Scrubs is actually more realistic, right? So anyway, Scrubs kind of lost me a little bit. Like the 5th and 6th season, you could kind of tell that they were kind of losing a little bit of their way and maybe not as comedic funny as it used to. But then when it got moved from NBC to ABC, they kind of reeled me back in because it actually ended up good and it ended on a high note. They did like another season, which was supposed to be like a like a follow-up series, but ABC didn't want them to name it another show. But it was a few new characters in there, but even then, I still thought that show was pretty funny. So Scrubs is my number 5. Are we going back and forth, or am I?
Yeah,
just going
sure. Yeah, back and forth. Okay. All right, my number 5. I don't know if it's on a lot of people's lists, but I feel like it's one of those that if you can get past the first half of the first season, and you watch all the way through, it's a show that will stick with you forever. BoJack Horseman on Netflix. No, I'm serious. So it's a comedy, right? It's billed as a comedy, but I don't know if there is another show on TV that has touched so well on like depression and just like mental, like what people go through, like mental illness, and like having those episodes to where someone like myself who doesn't have a personal experience with it can empathize and relate. I'm like, oh, I get it, you know, through this animation that they've done. And it's strange that a show about anthropomorphic animals seems more human than a lot of the shows that are out there. So yeah, BoJack Horseman is my number 5.
Okay. I was gonna either watch BoJack Horseman but instead I decided to watch I decided to watch instead F is for Family. So I don't know if you've seen that, the Bill Burr show. It's pretty good. It's a pretty funny show too. Okay. Pretty good. Okay, but that's not my number 4. My number 4 is an MCU show. It's a show that I pray that they bring back on Hulu, not on Disney Plus if they do bring it back, because if they bring it back on Disney Plus, it's going to completely remove what made it great, which was how grainy and gritty it was, which is Daredevil. Daredevil, I loved all 3 seasons. Me and Zino could probably talk about certain particular fight scenes on that show that were phenomenal. There was at least there was one fight scene in every season that was like probably the best fight scene that I've seen in forever, right? I know Zeno knows what you're trying to talk about. Season 1, where there's a hallway scene where all they're doing is panning on the hallway and he's fighting.
It's the most famous fight scene in like
that one's
Netflix
like phenomenal. MCU. And then there's the season 2 where he's going down the stairs, fighting the motorcycle club. And then season 3, actually, I think season 3's fight scene is the best fight scene out of all of them, which is where he's trying to get out of the prison.
Okay. Yeah, I think my most memorable fight scene of season 3 is actually in the news that newspaper, the newsroom, basically, where
no, that one was really great too.
Yes, but Bullseye has them held hostage, and then it's like.
But I loved the scene in the getting out of the jail, because it was just so like freaking like I for some reason I really love like the scenes that just like the camera's panning with you, because I don't know if you saw True Detective season 1 had a very similar scene like that. Did you ever watch season 1 True Detective?
I did.
Remember where they're coming out of the crack house? Or yes. He goes into the black neighborhood and they're trying to get the guy out.
Was that season 1? Oh, yes, it was. Yeah. Okay.
Because the reason I would never put True Detective in there is because season 2 was just boring and it was horrible. True Detective season 1 is like one of the best, like the best. If that was a limited series, I would say that's my favorite limited series, probably.
I never even watched season 3 because season 2 kind of turned me off a bit.
I heard Mahershala
Ali.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. You know, I suck at names. Anyways, Future Blade. I heard he brought it back. He made it come back to being as great. So that's my number 4. That's my number 4, Daredevil.
Okay, my number 4 is going to be controversial because I could have put its sister series in here instead, and no one would have batted an eye. But I actually think this show has surpassed its predecessor, and that's Better Call Saul. I think Better Call Saul is a better show than Breaking Bad.
Really?
And I think when looked back on, Bob Odenkirk's performance is going to be lauded as one of the greats. But not just that, but Rhea Seehorn as Ken Wexler. I think she's really underappreciated in her role. And yeah, I just think it's a really good show. And if you don't watch it yet, go watch it. I wonder I wonder how it's perceived by people who haven't watched Breaking Bad. Like if they're just going into it fresh. I don't think you need to watch Breaking Bad to appreciate it, but I think that there are
Won't
elements
you
to it.
miss? Won't you miss some of like the
There,
callbacks to it?
there's some elements in it that
Yeah.
that hits harder if you know Breaking Bad. But I think as a standalone show, it's still I think it's one of the best shows out there.
Hmm.
So Better Call Saul number 4.
Breaking Bad isn't even on the top 5, but I would maybe say top 10, but it's not in my top 5. So Breaking Bad is phenomenal too. But I've heard actually that Better Call Saul might be superior to it. Like that's what they say. Some critics have said. So not bad. So I said this was my number 2 in our Emmy talk, but actually I'm gonna have to say this is number 3 because I had to bump up the one. Just looking at it, I was like, there's no way that I can make the one of them. So number 3 is Titus. Like I said, Titus, if you have a chance, look it up on YouTube. I could even put like one of the episodes on the comment section. But Titus, honestly, I felt like it was ahead of its time in regards to some of its the stuff that it talked about. Now it just probably wouldn't pass. There's another show that actually I kind of put together, even though it's not as raunchy as that one, which is actually, I don't know if you ever seen Better Off Ted. You could catch that one on Hulu, actually. Better Off Ted. Better Off Ted was also one of those shows that was it just came around during the time when there was like shows that came ahead of their time, kind of like Arrested Development.
It sounds familiar, but I can't.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like picture
it. So Better Off Ted, it's a business executive. He works for a company and he's a very moralistically good guy, but
ABC.
Yeah, ABC. But
okay, yeah, I remember.
So that one was kind of ahead of its. So I kind of bump it up a little bit with Titus in regards to being ahead of its time. Kind of like Arrested Development was ahead of its time, but they brought that one back, even though season 4, season 5 they didn't hold up the same weight as 1 through 3. But this was also when Fox was creating good shows because this was around the time they created Boston Public. I don't know if you remember that show, which was good. Zino just I think he just came to a realization.
Yeah, I realized something that I left off my top 5.
Okay, right. Let me finish my number 3. Number 3, Titus. Really good show. I think we're going to go ahead and just let Zino make an honorable mention before he goes into his number 3. Go ahead. What's your honorable mention?
Yeah, my honorable mention. Oh, so I'm not talking about this show as, something that's objectively the best show out there. But I know for me, it was my, everyone has that show that they have to go watch as a religion. This one was it for me. It was 24.
Oh, that show was badass when it came out.
Jack Bauer is one of the all-time great TV action heroes. I love 24, but it's not in my top 5.
You know why you probably wouldn't include it in your top 5? Honestly, I love 24, but I couldn't go back and watch the whole series again. That's just too many damn episodes.
Yeah. And to be honest, there's a lot of filler. And you could tell when they came back for the 24 Live Another Day, and it was only 12 hours.
Same thing with like and then they came out with 24 Legacy, made that one 12 hours too. 12 too.
Yes, exactly. It was the 12 hours. The writing was a lot tighter. They got to the meat of it. Because when you go back and watch old 24, there is a lot of filler. Yeah, almost like an anime. So it's not my top 5, but I absolutely love that show. Number 3, we talked about this in our Emmy talk. You could tell how pissed I was about it. Parks and Recreation. I think so. I actually did a features yesterday with my friend Ali Fickett, and we were talking about. We were talking about it after the show. We just started like discussing about TV shows, and we were talking about Parks and Recreation, and I was comparing it to 30 Rock because I thought NBC's Thursday nights done right at that time was probably the best night in TV. Right, they had 30 Rock, Parks and Rec, Community, and The Office. I wasn't a huge fan of The Office, but those other 3 I was a big fan of. I think 30 Rock has probably the best writing in comedy. The jokes per minute was like unmatched. But as far as heart, as far as like memorable moments and characters that you grow to love, from Chris Pratt's Andy to Aubrey Plaza's April, Amy Poehler's Leslie. No, there's so many characters there. Parks and Rec stays with me forever. It's my number 3 show. It's the highest comedy on my list. So Parks and Rec.
I can't hate on Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec probably should have been in my top 5 too. But it's just that Scrubs. I've been a fan of Scrubs so long, I had to throw that one. But honestly, Parks and Rec, like a lot of people compare Parks and Rec, The Office, Community. I never bothered watching Community. It just never caught my attention. 30 Rock. I watched like the first season, but I never really got a chance to really get into it. But Parks and Rec is one of those but that's also one that I had to get past the first season. Because the first season was just so.
The first
long.
season was not good.
Huh?
The first season was not good.
No, it wasn't.
And you know what? That's a testament to how good the rest of the show is.
Yeah.
Because remember I mentioned earlier that one bad season can knock a show out of the top 5 or whatever. Parks and Recreation seasons 2 through 7 were that good that I can completely overlook how bad the first season was.
Yeah, the first season was bad. It's just because they made her look dumb, and then they also just didn't seem like good people.
It was supposed to be like, okay, here's The Office, but with the Parks Department. And it was because NBC had so much faith in Mike Schur and Amy Poehler, that they were like, look, just take it, make it what you want to make it, and like save the show. And yeah.
All right, so I want to do a real quick. Since you got to do one, I'm gonna do a quick honorable mention. Actually, I'm gonna say that this show is beloved, but not as many people talk about it. Like say they would talk about Friends. I would actually say that 70s show. That 70s show was phenomenal. It really was. It was just.
I love it.
It was just funny. It was just. Maybe it kind of suffered a little bit in the end because they just got too old. Honestly, I don't think the writing really started to suck. I just think they got too old to kind of be.
They grew out of the characters.
Yeah, they just got too old to be playing these kind of characters. But honestly, that 70s show, that has to be my honorable mention because, I forgot to include it the same way you forgot to include it.
I'm kind of sad Wilma Valderrama didn't go on to greater things because I love Fez in that show. But, yeah.
Let's just say Fez is probably his peak. Anyways, so... So my number 2. So I really am having an issue as to whether I should put my number 2 as number 1 or my number 1 as number 2. I'm gonna go ahead and just bite the bullet and say my number 2, even though it could easily be my number 1. And I'm gonna say it's The Americans. I know I talked about how I feel like they kind of gave it Emmy wins at the end because it was getting, and then I kind of compared it to Mad Men. I haven't seen Homeland, so I don't know. I definitely want to check out Homeland, so maybe I'll say I'll understand why they want. But The Americans is probably one of the best written shows that I've ever watched. Honestly, it's just the way they made the characters be consistent, the way they made. When I first saw the previews for it, I was like, how are you gonna make a show like this, be 5 season longs or whatever amount of time? How are you gonna make it be, it's about spies. They're gonna get caught eventually, right? But they did a great job. It was a phenomenal show. Honestly, Kerry Russell really should have won. She definitely got snubbed. She definitely should have won for that show. But The Americans definitely, honestly, one of the number 2 and probably number 1.
Okay. The Americans is definitely in my top 10. It is not in my top 5 just because there are that many good shows.
You just broke up because the internet doesn't like what you were about to say.
I said.
I'm gonna point that out there.
In case it didn't catch me.
Yeah, he froze on me, guys.
Okay.
So you can still hear me. It's because the internet said that he shouldn't have talked anything about the Americans not being.
I'll pause. Okay. Anyway, we had a bit of technical issues before I was about to say this. I was gonna say The Americans is not in my top 5. It is in my top 10. I love The Americans. Don't get me wrong. I think it had one of the best series finales of all time. Actually, going back to what you said about how they're gonna keep the spy story for so long, I thought one of the great things about it was you had Stan Beeman living right next to them. Like the guy who's looking for them is living right next to them.
And they made it realistic that he would. They made it realistic that he wouldn't. I don't want to ruin
that he
anything for
didn't.
anybody who hasn't seen it.
Right, right. But Noah
He
Emmerich.
didn't catch them for that long.
Noah Emmerich deserves all the props for his role as Stan Beeman. He's a fantastic actor. But it's not in my top 10. Just because there are so many. My number 2.
Okay, I thought you were going to say something stupid.
No. Nothing bad about the show at all. No, I love The Americans. My
I'm
number
just saying
2.
the internet didn't appreciate the butt, and that's why they cut you off. So.
Right. My number 2 is the show that you said you didn't watch. And my number 2 is probably one of the sole reasons Kerry Russell never won. Homeland. Claire Danes in the role of Carrie Matheson is incomprehensible. It's incomparable. That's the word I'm looking for. No one has embodied a role the way Claire Danes embodies Carrie Matheson. Like, I believe she's a crazy person.
That's a big.
Oh yeah, no, I believe like she, because the character goes to like she has bipolar disorder, but she's also like the best CIA agent. Yeah. And so when she's having her like episodes and all that stuff, she's so believable, and she always does this thing where her lip is quivering and all that stuff. Claire Danes, I think she's one of the best actresses of the past decade in television. I really do. I would say she is the best actress in television over the past decade. And this is a decade.
Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, and this is a decade that gave us Elizabeth Moss in *Handmaid's Tale*. Another one that could have been in my top 5, but I wasn't able to put it there. I think Claire Danes is heads and shoulders above all of them. And then you have supporting actor Mandy Patinkin as Saul Berenson. Others might know him from *Criminal Minds* or the *Princess Bride*, the Inigo Montoya. But as Saul Berenson, Mandy Patinkin is amazing. He's so good. So those two together, Claire Danes and Mandy Patinkin, they carry that show on their shoulders the entire way. And it's one of those that should be watched from start to finish. Yes, like every show, it has its peaks and valleys. But the two main cast members, they never waver. They're always at the top of the game. So Homeland, number 2.
So since it's still on Hulu, I'm gonna go back and watch it.
Okay.
And I'll let you know if I can concur.
And in the first 2 seasons, Damian Lewis as Nicholas Brody, he's also deserving of all the praise.
Okay, I will go back and watch Homeland, but that is if you tell me if you've watched this or haven't watched this, which I'm gonna say is my number 1, could be number 2. Like I said, The Americans just so great. Is Orphan Black.
I haven't. So I've seen a couple of episodes, but
have to watch it. Tatiana Maslany is like, first of all, she's gonna be She-Hulk, which I love. I love anything she's done because she also did she was great in this movie with about one of the guys who lost his legs. The guy who lost his legs during the Boston bombing. She plays his boyfriend, her boyfriend, or her girlfriend. No, his girlfriend. She plays the girlfriend of the main character, and she's like phenomenal in that one. But Tatiana Maslany plays different. She plays like, so the 4 of the main characters. Is it 4? Yeah, 4 of the main characters are played by her.
Yeah, so they're clones of each other.
Yes, and you cannot tell me that when she is in front of the camera, that she is not all 4 of those. She was phenomenal in the show. Just one of the, honestly, I can't say that she's not one of the greatest actresses to ever do it. The praise that you gave Claire Danes, I would give to Tatiana Maslany based off that show, just because she is just phenomenal in that show. And 4 of the main characters are played by her, but she honestly plays like I think up to like 7 other clones, or maybe less than that, maybe like 5 or 4 other clones, and every single one has its own intricacies, and every single one, you cannot tell me that isn't a different person.
So when I tried to watch Orphan Black, they had it on demand on like Charter on Spectrum, like BBC America on demand, but they only had like the first 2 or 3 episodes, and then I couldn't find it anywhere else after that.
It's
But
on
I'm
Prime.
sure, I'm sure I can find it now. So, yeah, I'll go back and watch it. The way you described it sounds a lot like James McAvoy's performance in Split or
Maybe I haven't seen that show, but
Glass.
I heard it's amazing too. But yeah, now imagine Split, 5 seasons, about 12 episodes each. So, so if you like Split, you're gonna like Orphan Black. Orphan Black, my
Okay,
number one, could be number two, but I'm happy with saying it's my number one.
that's good. That's good. My number one. I know you're gonna hate this, but my number one is Game of Thrones, and I'll tell you why. Look,
I
so
know I'm talking all this shit about Game of Thrones.
yeah, no, Game of Thrones is my number one. There really was never there really was never a question about it, and here's why. Yes, people can be mad about how it ended and yada yada yada. It didn't stay true to the
Man.
to the story. Can you hear me? Damn it. All right. So there were technical issues, and I was saying Game of Thrones is my number one, and here's why. Um, Despite what people might say about how it ended and it was disappointing and all that stuff, the reason why people had such visceral reactions to it is because of just how high that show got you in the first place. You wouldn't have that sort of reaction for a mediocre show. So one, at certain parts, the writing was at an all-time high. Now, its later seasons could then knock it off its perch a little, right? But what keeps it up there is that from seasons 1 to when it ended in season 8, no other show in the history of television before or since has reached the production values that Game of Thrones has. And that is the same reason why it won Best Drama at the Emmys, even for its final season. Because no matter what you say about, oh, this wasn't satisfying and this wasn't that, the scale of that show is unmatched. And probably until they do the prequel series, which I think is the trailer out for right now, no other show is going to match it. Just because no other show commands that kind of budget that HBO put behind it. So just from a technical standpoint, Game of Thrones is the best thing that has been put on TV, bar none. And that's my reasoning for it. Thoughts?
I mean, look, you have your reasons. They're your reasons, you know. I'm just saying that season 8 was disappointing. And I feel that the reason why it was so disappointing is because they didn't allow themselves. Honestly, that show probably should have been on another season to allow themselves to really get a chance to extend the story properly, to basically give themselves enough time to actually, because this is the thing I started seeing the downhill for me, which was season 7 when they started killing off a lot of different characters because they had to wrap up certain storylines, right? So I think that the problem is they didn't have the end result at the end. They didn't really have the end result thought of properly, and it might help. It might hurt that J.R.R. Martin hadn't come out with the shows and still hasn't come out with the final episode.
I think you're mixing up J.R. You're mixing up Tolkien and Martin. You said J.R.R. Martin. It's George R.R. Martin.
Oh, what's this? George Martin.
Yeah.
The George Martin.
Yeah, this is Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones.
I have the books right here. Oh, you are. George R. Martin. See, there's an R, though.
Yeah, no. But you said J, which is like Tolkien from Lord of the Rings.
Oh, I'm sorry. My mind. G.R.R. Martin. So anyways, George R. Martin, where he, I think that didn't help that he didn't come out with the, so they really didn't have, because the thing that I would say is Tyrion, his monologues weren't as great as they were at the beginning.
Okay. So I agree.
So anyways, I can get why you liked it, because the thing is, though, I was still glued to the end of the season, right? I have to, because I had to watch the finale. And then I honestly, this is the thing, though. The production, bro, I get that, but I hated the way that they did the battle with the walkers. I just, the over being too dark, that was just a misstep on their part. It could have been better if they'd done that, if they had done it. And honestly, it's just, I feel like they made some of the characters do stuff that didn't makes it just doesn't. It's just it was a very to me it was an unsatisfying finale for what's his name just going back to the wall.
So
Jon Snow.
here's what I think about how everything ended. I actually didn't mind any of the endings. What I minded was how they got there. I had a problem with. I think what you said is very true about how it could have benefited from maybe even 8 more episodes, because a lot of the story wrap-ups were very much rushed. That's very true. Um, and HBO even said that we'll give you more time. And Benioff and Weiss were like, nah, we're good. So like they definitely rushed a lot of things. And George R. R. Martin did, in fact, give them a roadmap. He just didn't write out the books like he had for the previous season. So they didn't have full-on source material, but they knew where it was going to end. And I don't mind where it ended. The one thing that got a lot of flack. Okay, let me say the one thing I had a problem with, and then I'll give you my other thing. So the one thing I had a problem with was the battle with the Night King. Yeah, well, the Night King specifically, because he had been hailed as like this great guy, blah blah blah, all that stuff.
And he didn't do shit.
He didn't fight. I wanted some sort of I love action sequences. We're talking about Daredevil. Daredevil versus Bullseye or something. Obviously they haven't made Game of Thrones like that, but a good sword battle, even if it's just 2 minutes.
Well, no, they did. They did have the one. Remember with Jon Snow when he went to go get the. Yeah, yes. That is honestly to me the best fight scene in the entire show.
So they could have done something like that.
They could have done something.
And I don't even mind Arya getting the kill, but have it be after some sort of fight. Some sort, it's like how.
And then not have Jon Snow just screaming at a dragon.
Yeah, like imagine Avengers Endgame. Spoiler alert, but you should have seen it by now. Imagine Avengers Endgame basically just being the heroes get the stones and they snap Thanos and his army away, and that's it.
And there's no battle, there's no fight.
There's right. Yes, you can get to that point, but the in between stuff matters. Thanos fighting the three of them, the trio matters.
Yeah.
And,
and it's kind of like you're kind of giving me more reason why I'm disagreeing with number one.
So okay.
Because I was gonna say, remember Blackfish?
Blackfish.
Blackfish. Remember his uncle, the uncle where Arya and his uncle. Remember he survived the Red Wedding, and he took over.
The guy in The Crown. Oh, you don't watch The Crown. But he plays Philip in The Crown. Yeah, I know the uncle. Yeah.
Yeah, like kind of like that scene where all what's his name did was go over there, talk to them, and convince the one guy to give up, and then it's just kind of like it just seemed like you were trying to rush it too fast. So that's the reason why I would say no. So I think we lost you again. So.
All right. Before we get off of Game of Thrones, there is one thing I want to talk about, and that is there was a lot of hate about the fact that Daenerys ended up burning down King's Landing and all that. She became Mad King or whatever. I didn't hate it at all. As a matter of fact, I kind of saw it coming, and 2, I thought it was earned. I thought there was a lot of stuff in that final season that wasn't earned. For me, that wasn't one of them. I thought that was actually one of the few things that they had taken time to build towards. I thought Bran being king made sense, but they didn't. No. They didn't make it. It made sense, but they didn't make it earned in the show. But
you mean that they should have been more steps to that actual action being done instead of just that one? Okay,
have him do something next to that tree while the Night Kings come to kill him. Like have him do something to build on his legend, and then people will be like, yeah, Bran should be king. I think him being because he is that neutral character, and he was the puzzle piece that led to all this with him being pushed out the window. I think it makes sense that it loops around back to him ruling over everything. I just don't think they put the pieces in place to make it earned. But by contrast, I thought the Daenerys heel turn was earned. I thought people were just mad for no reason.
Heel turn.
Yeah, like WWE.
No, actually, I can, before you get off on that, I can actually tell you that I don't disagree with you on that about that make. The only thing I would say is they spent so much time on that one episode of her burning down King's Landing that that just was part of the whole rushness, right? Like that the fallout of that, any other show, any other season, the fallout of that would have been another entire episode, opposed to like just like I think what was like 20 minutes at the end after that episode or something like that. I just feel like they really would have benefited from another. Like, I honestly think that Daenerys burning down King's Landing actually would have been a great season finale. Because then it would have been like, what the hell? And then the next season would have been about the follow-up to that, right? Something along those lines. Like, I think them not having enough time to make season 8 as great as the other seasons was good. Honestly, I still liked it up until season 7, though. I really did.
Okay. All right, that's our top 5. We had a lot of pauses in there, so the clips might be choppy, but we got it done. Good job, Zeus.
Zino will be in a technical extraordinaire to get it done.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. All right, we're moving on.